Let's kick this thing off very easy. Happy National Championship. The Gators won the Natty. So excuse the Gator question, but just wondering, what's your favorite UF tradition?
Oh, excellent question. Well, firstly, massive gratitude for having me. This is a fantastic opportunity. A big tradition, I would say, is winning. I think that is in our blood as Gators. Maybe it's not as frequent as we'd like it or as ubiquitous, but it's still there, and I think it's inevitable.
Yes, for sure. I agree. I think winning is in our blood. It's what I love too, and I'm really excited for the orange and blue game tomorrow. So our next question, what's a random fun fact about you that most people wouldn't expect?
Completely random. I'm going to be the man who either one, reforms Russian politics, or number two, fixes the healthcare system in the United States.
It would be either one. What about both?
It could be both, but I have to prioritize one over the other.
Yeah.
So which one are you going to prioritize? What's the strategy here?
There we go.
It depends. I think as I progress in my career, I'll have a cost-benefit analysis on which one is most effective to the humankind.
Which one's winning right now?
Right now, I think they are equally as difficult.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
right.
Those you have obviously the Russian oligarchs who want to stay in power versus the American oligarchs who want to stay in power in the healthcare system. So both very difficult.
I can see.
And very intertwined. I would agree. Dare to say.
I don't know if they're intertwined.
No, I'm saying different issues around the world. Like they pretty much all kind of
It's true.
follow similar, not similar, but
Same themes.
similar themes all around the world. It's like if one thing's happening here, it's like you can feel the ripple effects pretty much anywhere.
I second this notion. I mean, overall, just to conclude the question, it's I want to be remembered or have a legacy as someone who either accomplished those things or died trying.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's wonderful.
That's good.
I had a really good quote one time, though, which was that I want to be remembered. I don't want to be remembered because most of the people that created the greatest inventions, nobody ever knows their names.
That's true.
Well, it's a bit morbid. Okay.
Could not be, I don't know. But I definitely agree with that. I like that you have one specific or two specific things that you would like to do and you have a goal and kind of a path moving forward. That's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I look forward to following your journey and seeing which one you accomplish first, because that's pretty awesome. I'll say you heard it here first. Okay, so I guess a lighter question. Is there a song, like a go-to song that you listen to before like a meeting or an event?
Classic. I'm certain no one in this room knows it except me, unfortunately, but hopefully you'll check it out. There's this Soviet-era singer called Kino, which in translation technically just means film or movie.
Okay.
He's actually interesting because he was quite anti-political in a lot of the nature. So a lot of his music was surrounded on the topics or themes of freedom or voice, power of the people.
Awesome.
One of his songs is Группа Крови, which means blood group. Which I think has its own symbolism within the song. So I highly recommend just checking it out if you guys have time.
That's awesome. I will. That sounds super cool.
Yeah. When it comes to your college experience, is there a specific memory, vivid memory that comes to your mind first when you think about your journey here at the university?
College experience. Definitely. I think there were many times where I'm not one for public speaking, but specifically...
That surprises me.
Yeah.
I feel like you're like one of the better public speakers that I know.
100%.
Thank you. I think I kind of meant that in a sarcastic, ironic turn as well.
Okay, then, yeah.
But also I love public speaking, but I get very nervous. So I think that's why that also kind of catalyzes why they're quite memorable moments. But specifically, whenever it came to public comments, whether it was in front of the student senate, whenever it was in front of the board of trustees, things of this, when I was trying to speak up about justice here on the municipal level, I think that was definitely very memorable moments because specifically it was years and years or months of hard work that was agglomerated into finally presenting on the matter in front of the people who are there to listen. Were they actually listening? That's a second question. But at least I think as a student, I was there and did my due diligence to actually voice what I thought was akin to or a proxy of the student body.
Yeah, and so speaking about your advocacy, your resume is stacked. You've accomplished so much at the University of Florida. And don't worry, we'll get more into your specific work about Off the Battlefield Foundation and the Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative in a second. but we have to give congratulations first.
Mhm.
You recently were inducted into UF's Hall of Fame,
Thank you.
which is such an elite honor. What did that moment mean to you?
It meant a redemption, I think, because I actually applied for it last year, I believe, and I did not get it, unfortunately, last year, but I think I learned a lot as to what the process looked like and what exactly I need to improve upon to actually get to the quote-unquote elite status that you say.
Right.
And the year following that rejection or not reaching that destination was that of like trying to enhance who I am as a person, trying to not only kind of build it and continue engagement with the abstract concept I've created, but also trying to make sure that they are themselves as impactful as they can be on the communities that they're aiming to do something.
Yeah.
I think that was that journey, and I think that's what led me to actually get nominated and be a finalist and be actually accepted into the Hall of Fame this time. It was that pure grit that I believe I showed.
For sure. Where were you when you found out that you got it? Do you remember?
I remember when the list actually dropped. That was right after we filmed with University President Kent Fox.
Yeah, we were.
Wow,
yeah,
right
so
outside
wow.
of Tigert Hall.
Yeah, and we were
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
scrolling through.
Yeah.
You know, that's funny you say this because I don't think mine was as memorable as your guys'. When it dropped, I was actually walking across the Charlie Kirk occurrence. What was
Okay.
happening on the Plaza of the
Yeah,
Americas?
that was a busy day.
That was a very busy day.
That
So I
was, yeah.
So I was walking there, and I know that a lot of the college Democrats were trying to have people not engage, and then there were the college Republicans and the Turning Point UF that were trying to do the opposite, which is engage even more students. So it was this very chaotic occurrence. But I was running because I was running late to class actually, and I got a message that said congratulations from a person I don't speak to a lot, unfortunately, but that was very meaningful, and I was like, oh, thank you. What for, though? And then she said, then all of the different messages came flooding onto my phone with different congratulations, and I'm a person who tries to answer as soon as possible when someone's trying to give a compliment, so that it incentivizes more compliments. Hopefully, so I think
Strategy for sure.
I definitely had sore thumbs at the end of that day.
I love that. Like, I can even picture the scene. Like, it's just chaos happening, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah. But
Did you make it to class? No, you were late.
I was definitely late, but
Yeah.
I think the professors understood.
It was
Yeah,
worth
for
it,
sure.
for sure.
Mm.
I love what you said though about how like you have to build upon the foundation, even though you might get rejected. You know, a lot of people say that rejection is redirection,
Mhm.
but like that really is true, right? I mean, I personally, one of my biggest goals at UF is to be on that Hall of Fame, and I
Interesting.
think that you know, you applying as a junior, not getting it, kind of showcases how much that if you put the work and effort towards it, eventually your dreams can come true.
For sure. Yeah.
So off of kind of what you were saying just about UF shaping you, how did some of your specific experiences at UF shape you into the leader that you are today?
I really appreciate this question because I think the successes I've had with my more latter accomplishments, specifically with Off the Battlefield Foundation and the Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative, have been an agglomeration of all of my experiences thus far at the University of Florida and beyond. I think things as niche as being a treasurer at the Pre-Legal Honor Society, it allowed me to learn how to actually fundraise money, how to bookkeep, how to actually utilize said funds for the benefit of a mass of 200 plus students. So things like that definitely taught me. Then there was obviously Student Senate that taught me legislative work and how to actually be a conflict mediator between two different parties that were quite showcased quite intense behaviors towards one another. That was one of them. Then it was the actual involvement with different culture organizations on campus. I've attended so many things. I've attended the Ukrainian Student Association events, the Russian Culture Club events, Balkan Student Association, Polish Student Association, African Student Union, La Casita always has events that I go to. All of these different organizations, I attend there, and I realized how simultaneously there are such beautiful things that make each group individually amazing, and then there are things that obviously unite a lot of these groups together. So just being in those circumstances, I think I've grown akin to being someone who is a diplomat to some extent. You know, I wanted to be in as many groups as possible, and I wanted to see them build communication towards one another. And when the war actually broke out, it was fascinating to see that such like-minded people that I that I have such respect for grow distant from one another. Russian students it became Russian students versus Ukrainian students.
Right.
Toxicity broke out not only on social media but on campus when it comes to what events to show up to, what not. And I felt as though these two groups that I fell in love with basically were separating. And if this is happening on our campus, imagining what's happening actually in Ukraine and in Russia.
Right.
Like it's I think very proportional. So I think myself as someone who envisions themselves dealing with this on a global scale, I think I kind of set a responsibility for myself to do something here on campus.
Right.
And where does that start? That starts with trying to actually listen to these groups. And I think I've been doing it for the past 4 or something years, but I wanted to learn even more. And that's why I got involved with the Alachua County Crisis Center, where we respond to 98 suicidal callers, specifically answering people who are in the highest level of level of distress upon in their whole life, essentially. So taking what I've learned there, those skills, I was able to actually apply it to how to actually listen to someone, how to make sure that they're heard. And I think these are characteristics that all politicians should have in general if they want to be a good person, you know?
Totally.
So I applied it here, and I realized that there is a common trend amongst these groups, both the Russian side and the Ukrainian student side, as well as all the other cultural groups, is they felt an emotion of threefold. First one is they felt a responsibility to help somehow. They wanted to do something. They feel like they need an outlet. The second was a guilt for not doing so already, for not knowing how to do it. And even if they did, they didn't know like if they were doing it the correct way. And the third one is paradoxical because they felt as though they were powerless. All of this responsibility and guilt, there's no way to actually do it. There's no outlet that is healthy. There's no outlet that is secure enough to do so. Obviously, you can send money to everything, but you don't see where that's going. And of course, there's so much corruption. I think half than 50% of the actual money that was approved by Congress was actually sent to or arrived in Ukraine. So we start questioning what the heck is going on. How do I help? And I wanted to create an outlet for that and create an outlet that actually is tailored to the students' interests and their skill sets. That's why I've been building a portfolio with students who are civil engineers, bioengineers, people who work in public health, people who work in as a pre-med student, as a political science student. All of these skills were agglomerated together with all these student interests, which allowed me to create the memorandum of understanding, create the actual sister city alliance, create the connections between the two universities that we're doing projects with, start talking about anti-bomb shelter construction. All of this was all the agglomerations of my past relation building and skill set development.
I really like what you talked about with the cultural groups because I think it's very relative to who you are as a person. You know, India versus Pakistan for me especially, and as a person, it's such a big problem for me, and I haven't necessarily gone out and done so much as you. So I really respect everything that you've done, especially for the Russian and Ukrainian people, because I mean they're not so dissimilar, if anything. With that being said, you're an innovator, you're a pioneer, you're a creator. And all of those things mean that you have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. So tell me a little bit about what pushed you out of your comfort zone. What drove you to be the leader and the pioneer that you are today?
Yeah, I appreciate this question. Thank you for all the compliments that were kind of packed into that question. Specifically, the theme that you mentioned about discomfort, I think, is quite critical because I think my whole portfolio is about trying to build myself as a person. So I think in order to do so, you must seek discomfort. And I think the beauty of being a student at the University of Florida and partaking in amazing programs, which shout out to programs like Beyond 120, by the way, they allow you to seek discomfort in a comfortable way, which is an amazing thing, I think, where, for example, I wanted to improve my Spanish simultaneous to understanding the medical systems abroad. So Beyond 120 allowed me to go to Oaxaca, Mexico, specifically for a week, where you just shadow doctors there. And you not only that, but there are Spanish courses like entangled with these shadowing programs. So I was able to actually go where I felt most uncomfortable, but learn as much as I can, and also make sure that there's a safety net when it comes to that, when it comes to either the educational side of things, when it comes to actually just pure safety as a whole. So there are so many amazing ways at UF, and I'm assuming other universities have it as well, but I think because I've witnessed it firsthand here, and I took advantage of it, I was able to leverage them, I think that is also a massive component to my successes here. And I also commend you for also seeing this and like wanting to do something with Pakistan and an Indian student association, because I think they too have a very good structure amongst themselves. And actually the things that I've done with this cultural element, I actually learned from them. I attended so many of their events, ranging from, I know they had like festivals, they had the Diwali event recently that I attended. Amazing organization, amazing cultural things they've done. And I saw how they were able to have the Pakistan Student Association as well as the Indian Student Association come together at the Holi event, for example, the Holi event. Like, you can see specifically those two groups of students still coming together and just throwing paint at each other. Yeah, it was a fantastic. That's what you need. Yeah, I think right now the Ukraine and Russia thing is just so intense that you don't really see that, and unfortunately I don't think it's going to be like that for a while because of that massive catalyst of divergence that has happened. But hopefully maybe in the next 10 years we will see something like like a Diwali event with Ukrainians and Russians.
Definitely.
The picture that you paint is so beautiful of experiential learning, because I mean, all these different groups have such unique perspectives that you truly can't know just by reading things online or,
Right.
I mean, you to an extent, but by actually going and seeing that and experiencing it for yourself, I think that's so special, and that's such a unique way to take in that information and understand it further.
Yeah, and even like to our audience as well. Hi guys. It's very important to step out of your own individual comfort zones, and if you don't think that an event is for you, or it's not necessarily your culture, you can go and explore that. You can go step out of like your everyday day to day. Because I've been to some of like the Gator Ross events. They're so cool, like watching all the dances and exploring new culture. I mean, that's what we have the privilege to do here at the University of Florida, being such a big school, being 60,000 students. We have the ability to learn from those around us and experience, celebrate with people, throw paint on each other, which is an event that you might not have in your day-to-day life if you weren't at the school and you weren't taking advantage of it. It's been one of my favorite parts of college. So definitely, if you look at something and you're like, wow, this looks really fun, or oh, I want to try this new food, or I would like to learn about this religious holiday, things like that you didn't really know about, or maybe you've just heard about and you want to actually learn what's more to it. Even if it's not going to the events, it's talking to the people that are in your class, talking to the people that are in your clubs, and being able to make those connections and learn, not just in the classroom, but from the people that are around you as well. So I like that you highlighted that.
Of course.
Focusing on the future, you're obviously Hall of Fame, it's immortalized right there, but, what advice would you give to a student leader who wants to have a real legacy on campus?
This is interesting because earlier you specifically said that you'd love to be in the Hall of Fame, and that's one of your goals. I think for myself, I didn't even know about the Hall of Fame until that year I was applying to. Because I think for me, one of the things I've realized is I would much rather actually make an impact in the fact that there are people that either their lives have improved by my presence here. And I think that should be the mentality people should have, is how can I make sure that, of course, I have fun. I have entertainment at the university. I think you can see it's evident that like when we win a championship, those streets are flooded with people because they're here also to have fun.
Right.
But most importantly, it's if I enter a room, how have I improved that room in general or the people in it? And I think that's the mentality you should have when it comes to any of your leadership roles. You're not there to have that as a titular illusory thing on your resume. It's making sure that you have that impact where you leave it, and that legacy is the acts that you've done itself. You've raised enough money for the homeless, for example. You raised enough money for a specific orphanage. You've actually went and actually got your hands dirty with specific volunteering opportunities. I think that itself is the actual essence of a legacy. Everything else is titular. That's why whenever people say, "Oh, you're in the Hall of Fame, that's awesome," I say, No. It's potentially awesome what I did to actually be in the Hall of Fame. It's not the actual Hall of Fame that I think you should shine light on. It's the actual people that have been impacted by what I've done. If you truly believe that I've actually done something, that's a whole different existential crisis that we can go into. But another essence is, for example, when I mentioned the crisis center, my main motivation as to going there is because I've witnessed through Student Senate, for example, and I also worked with the Federal Relations Office for UF in DC. I witnessed a lot of it is a lot of just conversating, presenting, talking to stakeholders, but not actually doing anything with it. And with the Crisis Center, I actually was able to get my hands dirty, actually sit down, get the necessary training, and actually talk to the people that essentially I'm going to be impacting, I will impact. Everything else that was was kind of just for show, I realized. And I think that's why people should find that balance between service with actually getting volunteer work and getting their hands dirty, but also having that level of leadership to actually take what you've learned out there and carry it over.
I wish more of our politicians cared as much as you. And
Thank
I
you.
really like how you kind of actually, even though your goal may be to fix the healthcare system, you actually go out and do the thing you're going to say you're going to do by going to Mexico, finding that opportunity. And, you know, you're not supposed to be the smartest person in any room. You want to be and learn from the experiences of others and figure out how you can tailor your response, how you can optimize the efficiency of certain healthcare systems, whatever that may be. So I really love that.
Of course.
I also think the scale of impact is an important conversation because, like, you're doing all these incredible things, but also, like, to our listeners, I think just the message of, like, do the best you can in every space you enter is so powerful because even if you're not, changing the healthcare system, you can be revolutionizing your homework assignment, whatever it might be.
Leave a legacy with people that are around you.
You have to start somewhere.
Exactly. So I think the scale of that, like the root of what you're saying is the most important part. In addition, of course, to your incredible examples, but just what you're saying, I think anybody can do. So everyone should do, I guess I should say. But
I second that notion.
Okay, good. I guess transitioning a little bit, you've mentioned it a couple times, but let's talk about your work with Off the Battlefield. The chapter here at UF, known as the Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative. So can you tell the audience, to those who might be unfamiliar with both, kind of just give us a little overview?
Of course, yeah. I would love to provide some context as quick as possible as well. Specifically, when this divergence between Ukrainian and Russian students happened, I wanted to actually provide an outlet for, again, the skills and talents that we have on our campus to actually do something to progress. And it was simultaneous to this revelation that I had. I was interning with the United States Department of State, specifically their Bureau of Energy Resources up in D.C. And I had the pleasure of, in a meeting, meet the mayor of a city called Nizhyn in Ukraine. His name is Mayor Kadola. And I share these ambitions and what is happening on our campus and how there are so many students that want to help but just don't know how. And I also shared with him my previous experience with the city of Gainesville, specifically working with Mayor Ward and the policy administration team they have there, as well as the commissioners. And I've also researched sister city alliances. So I basically proposed to him, why don't we create something like this and have this as an outlet for the students to actually infuse all of their interests and their ambitious projects with. And he was like, let's do it. So I met him on November 3rd, 2023. And it was October 31st, 2024, only 3 days before the 1-year anniversary of me meeting him, that we actually had a memorandum of understanding legal document that our students created, basically. Wow. The design of it was all created by students. The words we took out of previously successful memorandum of understandings, infusing it with the language that's specifically tailored towards our projects and our city. And that memorandum of understanding was signed by both Mayor Kadola and Mayor Ward. On October 31st, 2024, we officially became sisters and brothers of the city of Nizhyn. And it was a revolutionary movement. And for me, that was such an impactful thing because not only do we have like these students that are engaged with it now, they're the faculty members, but also the fact that now we have municipal support on it as well. But that was only the beginning, I would say, because then it became a battle of, okay, how do we get the necessary funding for it? How do we actually tailor to the student needs? Now we have 5 different projects specifically. Civil engineering, constructing an anti-bomb shelter at a bus stop specifically for students to use and feel safe when they're actually going to school. We have the public health division that is planning to send medical packages specifically that is tailored towards the Nizhyn orphanages and hospitals' needs. We have the agriculture research facility or division who's looking into how has the conflict specifically impacted water control, pH levels, and actually water like implementation in farming. So in researching farmers and publishing potential articles on that. Then we have the cultural diplomatic exchange program that we're doing between our University of Florida International Center as well as their Nizhyn Gogol State University. And then lastly, we have our prosthetics division, which is trying to construct a prosthesis for a veteran amputee. Thankfully, we got funding from Smathers Library of $2,000 for the prosthetic division. We have also received recently the Projects for Peace $10,000 grant from the Brown Center for Leadership that is going to be distributed throughout all of the different projects. So everything has been going fantastic. We received around over 17 letters of support when we were applying to the actual grant. So we can see that not only is this involvement with the university entities, not only is it involved with the city of Gainesville, but it's also involved with private sector companies. It's also involved with city of Nizhyn organizations. All that started with just an idea to unite Russian and Ukrainian students. That, I think, is the beauty of the Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative.
I would actually like to talk more about these different division-based sectors: engineering, public health, prosthetics, agriculture, cultural affairs. Some projects, as you mentioned, these anti-bomb shelters, the medical nutrition-based aid packages, working on programs for limb substitutes, agricultural research for farming, creating these cultural exchanges between students from UF and Nizhyn. This is a lot to manage and really diversified. Why set it up like this, and what is the benefit to having these different teams all working together on varied but important and cohesive projects?
Of course. So I think the important essence there is specifically that it is tailored towards the interests of the students and their strengths. Because now this work that we're doing with the Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative, I believe, shouldn't deviate away from what they want to do with their careers. And I think that is what has been so successful for us, or that has allowed us to be so successful. These students, they're having, not only do they actually provide some kind of assistance or drive towards actually making a change within the city of Nizhyn, but they themselves are using it as a trampoline for their careers and their professions. Our civil engineers, they're using their techniques to actually create and not only apply what they've learned in class when it comes to software like AutoCAD, SolidWorks, making those 3D models specifically, but they're also contract negotiating with private sector companies within the city of Nizhyn. How do we actually get the material to the right place? Right. So that is just one example that is proxy to just how our students are utilizing their skills, their interests, and career ideals to actually push for these projects. And to be honest, the control or overlook of all of these projects, I have to give grand gratitude towards our e-board and directorship as well, which has been working tirelessly to actually make sure that we are getting some results and some impact within the community.
Awesome.
As a visionary, a key takeaway that I get from you is pure passion.
Yeah.
From our viewers, a lot of them are doing amazing research within AI, within humanities, social sciences, or even, all the way into STEM. They also might, have a buttload of courses, maybe full-time students. Any recommendations for them to, start their own kind of projects, passion projects, just like yourself?
That's a very, of course. I think there's a lot to learn about specifically, again, you making sure that you're able to build on all the experiences you've had thus far, making sure that nothing that you've done goes to waste. I think that's quite important. Whether that's making sure that, you keep contact with that one research professor you've had, that is critical. I think the reason why everything was able to catalyze and grow so fast with the Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative is because I was able to connect the right people at the right time. Because of all the things I've done previously, all the connections I've made. One professor, for example, was in my medical geography class. I thought I was going to say goodbye for him forever after that class. I was done. I was like, okay, this class was very difficult. I thank you for your time. Truly appreciate you. Of course, I do my due diligence. I'm like, I thank him. I write him a thank you note and stuff.
Wow.
But
but I never want to see you again.
No, never. I don't want to see you again. I've never had that mentality, and I think that's what I'm trying to stray away from. Because I when it came to actually drawing. Okay, a little context. The class taught you how to use a suitability model, specifically doing layers through ArcGIS of places of best efficiency and suitability of a specific location. Usually it has to do with more economic terminologies, but here I was like, where do we even place a bomb shelter? That it's not only is it protective of the people, so it's also effective, but it's also suitable for the land. You can't put it on a hill that is that's obviously the trajectory is a little bit off. So we had to create the suitability model to actually see how we can enhance that. So everything I learned there, I was able to carry it over and train my students or help students get acquainted to that. Not a lot of people can do that, which is connect those dots. And I remember coming back to my professor, running into him in the hallway and being like, "Sir, thank you for this class again. It was amazing to connect those two dots." So I think the biggest advice I could give is making sure that you don't forget the things that you've already done, because there are so many times things we're going to repeat. even if it's not as clear or transparent right now.
Yeah, and I think I've understood that from the federal career. What
was the Federal Relations Office?
Yes,
Yeah.
all the way from the Federal Relations Office, Wanda Brown Civic Center, Bob Graham Center. You put them all together, and also your work at the National the Bureau for Labor.
Bureau of Energy Resources.
There you go, man. You just put it all together, and it kind of all conglomerates into everything that you are today. Transitioning into a little bit of a question. What is your biggest accomplishment with the URI, and what do you hope to see in the future?
Biggest accomplishment? I think, obviously there are the quantitative ones that I think I could give you a statistic about, maybe how much money we raised or the grants we received. But I think the most important one is just establishing a precedent that something like this is possible. Student-led initiatives that is, again, 100% student-led when it comes to the actual legal documents that we've created, 100% student-led when it comes to the actual engineering projects that we've created. All of this is student-led, student-constructed. I think is very powerful, because now when I continue my work, I'm going to be establishing other chapters at different universities, because I have understood, hey, students are capable of this. Students are just as passionate for something like this. And I think there is that pool of desire for them to get involved as soon as possible in their careers that I think not a lot of people have previously looked at before. So I think it's the greatest accomplishment is highlighting the importance of student-led initiatives.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, you'd think like anyone with the things that you've accomplished would say something not like that. They would say the amount of money that they've raised or a certain project, but realizing that you really care about the mentality behind it and the community that you're building is just so important, and it speaks to your character as well. So I like the name Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative. I like that here at UF as well. Speaking on the word rebuilding personally, what does rebuilding actually look like in a place that's still in conflict?
Of course, yeah, and I think this inquiry has been dropped upon me before by many people. Of like, how can you start rebuilding if the actual conflict has not concluded? And I think this goes a little bit deeper. It's not just infrastructure that we're rebuilding; it's those relations that we're rebuilding with people as well. Because on the federal level, some turmoil that's happening there has created also some distaste for a lot of Ukrainians towards Americans, in addition to all the distaste they have already for the Russian identity as well. So when we're saying rebuilding, we also mean healing. We also mean making sure that people are come together to understand what we're doing. It's this desire to agglomerate different notions of what it means to move forward. And I think that is why we call it the Rebuilding Initiative. The two founding divisions that we had was engineering and public health, because we understood, hey, this is not only the construction of specific walls of buildings, but it's also the human aspect and the human interaction that I think is essential.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I love that concept of how rebuilding is so multifaceted, and there's not just one cookie cutter way of doing it. So to explore all those different means, I think is super cool. What role do universities, students, or even individuals halfway around the world play in supporting this kind of work?
Especially since you said that you wanted to spread it across the nation.
Exactly.
That's a great question. It's funny because I think whenever people ask me what is next for me when it comes to like graduating and whatnot, obviously plan A is I would love to go to a university like Oxford, or London School of Economics, and you best believe that there's going to be a Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative chapter in whatever university I am. So I think these
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you. So I think the analogy, I can't find which one is the better analogy, but I think a ladder could be used here, or it could be a trampoline. It could be the plungers that you use to climb as well.
Yeah.
Like any analogy like that works, I think, in this capacity of what a university is. It's something that allows you to use the amazing resources that are there for students' interest to simultaneously create this path for students to progress in their career, but also have that path also be parallel to the fact that you are constructing something, an actual impact in your community or in the communities beyond the one that you live in, which I think is the most important element here. It's the fact that there's this thing is a globalizing precedent that is being created.
Absolutely.
It's Wonderful. And let's go transition a little bit back to when we were talking about how the world politics and how, the war is still ongoing.
Yeah.
And I also really love the sentiment about healing the people and the rebuilding aspect of the actual name. How do you think the current state of politics affect your mission? How tuned into everything are you? And, what do you know about the ever-changing political atmosphere and the ongoing war?
Of course, yeah. This is a very interesting question because specifically, I'll answer the latter portion because I think it's a little bit more easier to answer, is how do I keep up with these things? Specifically because I try to make sure that I have a myriad, kind of plethora of information coming from different people, including for example, the Ukrainian students' side of things, the Russian student side of things. My parents, for example, read different news than everyone else. I make sure that I read articles from American sources, articles from Ukrainian sources, articles from Russian sources, just to make sure that I have a holistic perspective of what the heck is going on abroad, because I know that there's a lot of disinformation, misinformation that's happening, that you kind of get tired. There's a lot of fatigue when it comes to this matter, but when it comes to the politics, that's a little bit more tricky, because when I started this whole initiative in the first place, the people that came from a Russian background, in a sense, those that, for example, from my family, sort of from my friend group that were hardcore Russians, they called me a traitor to my country. And the people from the Ukrainian side at the beginning called me someone who is not one of them. I'm just a foreigner who's trying to get involved with something that is not my business, essentially, or opposite. Maybe I have ill intent. Maybe I'm a spy or something. So both sides basically hated me from this perspective. Then in the midst of it all, when they see I'm actually doing stuff, there were both sides didn't want that to succeed to some extent, because again, the Russian side was like, why are you doing this? Why are you wasting time? Well, you can't even go back to Russia because now you're a traitor to the country. While the Ukrainian side were like, okay, we're seeing that you're making progress, but your identity is still strange. You're from Russia. Why are you doing this? There's no there shouldn't be any incentive, and that what hurts the most. When they say you shouldn't be incentivized to help to some extent. There is that group that kept on echoing that to me, that message, unfortunately. Now I'm even in a weirder situation, because now the Trump administration is almost like doing a 180. Now people are like, maybe Ukraine started this war with their aggression, and it's a strange perspective on that, because now we have Republicans that are saying, why are you doing this? It's a waste of time. We shouldn't be supporting Ukrainians. The Russian people are like, you see, I told you wasted your time this whole time. And the Ukrainians are like, I'm so done with this. Like, I don't want to even look at another Ukrainian thing, as like there's so much fatigue with it. Or worse, they're like, again, why is a Russian leading a Ukraine rebuilding initiative on our campus? And even academics have told me this specifically when I said I'm from St. Petersburg, Russia, But to answer this question is I try to distance myself from all of these people to some extent.
Right.
Because look at me. I'm, born in Russia, raised in the United States to some extent, but I'm not pro-Russia. I'm not pro-Ukraine either. I'm pro-humanity, for God's sakes, I think
I love that.
the fact that there's a political stance as to healing and rebuilding a community, I think that is what hurts me the most. And I think that is something that I think politicians, academics, scholars all have failed to actually communicate with the masses, specifically right now, is that if a student, such as myself, right, under 30, people under 30, or maybe even people under 20, that want to improve the lives of a specific group, it does not trump the lives of others,
Right.
And I think that's what I think is what hurts me the most, and I want to see ultimate change on, specifically.
I love that. And I love that throughout this whole process, you're taking a step back and getting such a holistic view of all the different viewpoints.
Right.
I think that that's something that's commonly overlooked with people that are trying to enact change, and that's part of the problem. So just the fact that you're reading all these different news sources and hearing these people, but still kind of ensuring that you're pushing them away and not letting those voices get to you, just focusing on that impact, I think is so special about what you're doing. So anything else on?
I want to just go ahead, Jordan, please.
I'm gonna echo you. I think that most of the time when you are very passionate about something, excuse my voice, by the way. When you're really passionate about something, it's easy to die on that hill. It's easy to have tunnel vision, laser focus, very, very focused on that one thing, that one thing's right. And I think even throughout that answer, you reevaluated so many times that you remembered what those people said, you took it, you understood, but then you also saw, okay, well, it's fluctuating, it's going to change depending on what's happening in the world, what's going to happen today, tomorrow. So it's also a lesson that you don't really have to take everything that's said to you today as concrete fact, and that kind of going back to what we were saying at the very beginning, rejection is redirection. You know, similarly, even rejection can still be putting you not even in the different direction, but just pushing you in the same direction, pushing you in this direction to get. Am I making sense?
Yes,
Is this making
yes.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say, I think building off of that, it even though you get a no on something, you can keep going at it. You can find a different way. You can look at it a different perspective, a different angle. You can talk to new people because what you're doing is not changing. It's people reacting to it, and they have so many different reactions. So it's focusing on what you think is true and hearing the voices of others and weighing that. And I think that's, you know, what you're talking about with your identity, and I think is a very, very special lesson for people to understand and to know. And I feel like I'm learning something from this as well.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, you must change the status quo. We're in the 21st century, and when you said we should be pro-humanity, I mean, I could not agree with this statement more. I don't know why traditional warfare is still occurring. We have nukes, we have hybrid warfare. I mean, Russia propaganda and all the different things they did in the Baltics earlier on in the 2000s. I mean, there's so many different things that are going on across the world, and the one thing that I think everybody can agree on is that lives should never be lost. So I really enjoyed that statement.
All right, so transitioning a little bit, you've lived in Latvia. What took you there? What was the transition like coming from Gainesville to living abroad? Sorry, that was horrible.
And can I add on to that? So you were born in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Yeah.
Petersburg.
Yep.
Then you moved to Latvia.
No. So I got you guys. I didn't brief them on this. Basically, born in St. Petersburg, right? Grown up in the United States. Last year, they sent him to Latvia.
Oh, I wasn't expecting
Who
that.
is they?
You can get into it.
So there's a program called Born Awards. It's a collaboration between the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. State Department, specifically to enhance critical languages within students who want to work in national security interests.
It's wonderful.
So they picked me for actually Russian, interesting enough, but you can't send someone to Russia right now. So they sent me to Latvia, which is fascinating as a whole because if you ask an average American where Latvia is, they'd be confused.
I've been before, actually.
You've been to Latvia?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me, why? What brought you to this country?
We were just visiting, vacationing. But we went to a bunch of Scandinavian countries, so it was really cool.
Interesting that do you think Latvia is a Scandinavian country?
I don't want to answer that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just the area.
Of course, yeah.
Like,
I think they themselves would love to call themselves Scandinavian.
Yeah,
I think
I've heard the debate before, but I don't want to have an opinion. I'm not educated enough on the topic.
The Baltics
What about
are very
you?
interesting to me, so
Yeah?
I'm very interested to hear what you have to say.
What do you think?
Okay, so I think there is. I think there is a okay, first off, I think it's a fascinating country because obviously it's a former Soviet republic, right? Now it's in the European Union. It's also in NATO.
Yeah.
The city that I was, quote-unquote, stationed in was called Daugavpils, which is the largest Russian-speaking city in the whole of NATO and the EU. So you can already see how nuanced it could be when you have a city that borders what your quote-unquote enemy is, or the whole reason why NATO still exists, which is to oppose Russia. So we have a mix of all types of people there. They have Soviet sympathizers. We have NATO and EU haters, right? But then we have Soviet haters. We have haters of everything. We have, I'm going to say the N-word, they have Nazi sympathizers as well. They have those that think that Russian should just be banned as a language as a whole. We have those that say that Russian should be a national language in addition to Latvian. And then we have, not only does that complicate things, but we also have technically a quote-unquote indigenous community, even though they don't recognize them as indigenous community, as Latgalians. which is the region that is located that Daugavpils is located in. So, but the reason why they don't register Latgalian as an identity, even though side note, Russia technically does, as well as Belarus, and I think in Ukraine they recognize Latgalian as an ethnicity as well.
Right.
So just to put even more turmoil in the logistics of Latvia and the complexities. So technically, Latvia declares that Latgalian is not even a language in itself; it's only a dialect of Latvian. But then it starts getting confusing when parliament members try to speak in Latgalian in their parliament equivalent, and they're told not to. They can only speak in Latvian. But then they're like, "But you just said that Latgalian is Latvian," so it gets very confusing.
Complicated, for sure.
But overall, in addition to those complexities, I think there's a massive beauty in what Latvia is. Like their fight for independence, I think, is also somewhat heroic, and I think I always try to root for underdogs when it comes to everything. So Latvia is an underdog in both fronts, relative to the Soviet/Russian side, as well as relative to the EU because of its small proportion. So you get this story of underdogs that I think is quite nice and resonates with the Latvian identity. So why was I there? I was there to basically be a student, but I also had the opportunity to meet a lot of their congressman equivalent people, as well as a lot of U.S. officials that were stationed there as well.
That's awesome. What a great experience.
Yeah.
I understand better now. Very complicated, way more complicated than I think I've ever been able to understand, but from materials we have, but cool.
What surprised you most about the Latvian culture? And I don't know if this is still a thing, but the Latvian festival?
Latvian festival? I mean, they have a lot of festivals. I mean,
I've heard a lot about them, but I don't know exactly what is what. I know they're when they got independence, that's one of their biggest ones.
Of course, that's a very big one. They also have a lot of ones that relate to their own mythology. I know that Latvia was the last country to, quote-unquote, accept Christianity, because that region had its own crusades, and the pagans that were in Latvia were the last to be murdered, basically, mass murdered. So they were the last fighting off Christianity. So technically, they also have a festival for those types of things and their own mythological understandings. So they go ham when it comes to their festivals. Yes, I think the one that maybe you're referring to is the one where they go with torches. They they just walk around their city. That was quite intense when I was there, because I was like, it almost seems like for me, as a person who associates, maybe Americans do as well now, torches with maybe something as controversial as the KKK, basically, it frightened me at first. And I think Russian propaganda actually utilized this as a way to actually look at these crazy devil worshipping people. But if you look into their history and their actual what is it for, the symbolism of it is more so for freedom. It's more for independence. It's getting together, life. Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of nuances with that. So I think that's maybe what you're referring to. And that was also obviously a big shock to me. I think a secondary shock was how similar and nostalgic it was for me growing up in Eastern Europe. So I saw a lot of connections there, but also minor differences that obviously shape their own identity.
How do you think living internationally, traveling and seeing all of these different cultures and kind of these nuances and exploring those, how do you think it's changed the way that you look at and view service, leadership, community building here back in the States and what you're doing now in our community?
That's a great question. So during my time in Latvia, I think I learned a lot of different things. The first element, and I think that answers your question directly, is the fact that so many eyes are on the United States. So whenever I was there during the election cycle, so that was everything that was happening on the news. That was there, and then I remember even reading something on their local news that I think it was in either London or New York that they allowed jaywalking. They legally allow jaywalking now, and everyone in Latvia.
Legal in Florida, I think.
Really, it's legal in Florida.
I think so.
I don't want to
think so.
I
don't know about that.
Maybe for college students who don't get caught. But
jaywalking is not illegal in Florida.
oh shoot, okay.
It's the Andrew Pickett law.
Andrew
Wow.
Pickett Law. All right.
It's
There
okay
you go,
for me.
Jordan knew.
Look at me.
Oh my God.
Look at me.
That changes everything.
Wow.
Oh well, I don't condemn. I don't condemn. But
Condone.
I don't approve of jaywalking. Nevertheless.
Sorry for the jaywalking tangent.
What was I on? What was I talking about? Oh, okay. So when they found out that jaywalking was allowed, that became a whole debate in like my city. It was like, well, should we have jaywalking now? So it just showcases how influential a decision as niche and as specific as that could carry over to countries that are abroad, because they see us as a representative democracy. Even though now it's a bit weird. Now they're like, what the heck is happening? They still have this perspective, and I think we as have a strong responsibility. Insert Peter Parker quote. Here, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
So there, we have to make sure we take responsibility of that. But also, the secondary element that I think indirectly answers your question is, I had the opportunity to actually shadow the mayor of a city called Prele in Latvia, specifically because it was funny. I was on a call with Mayor Kodolo from the city of Nizhyn, and he invited the mayor of Prele over because he was also sister cities with them.
Wow.
So we had this like three-way discussion specifically about like sister cities.
That's
And I was like, I'm simultaneously in Latvia as well. We have to meet up. And he's like, of course. He didn't speak any English or very minimal English, but he understood Russian. So I was able to have conversation with him in Russian. So I drove up through. They have an amazing train system in Latvia as opposed to America. But so I was able to use the train to ride up to his city, and we specifically he showed me the packages that he sends to Nizhyn for the assistance there, and he was like, I would love for you to shadow. Let's actually see how we do this operation, so you can potentially mirror it with your project with the Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative. And specifically, the amazing part of that was not only was I able to see his process, but he said specifically when you start your own process, instead of shipping with like UPS or Amazon to Nizhyn, you can send it directly to Latvia to decrease costs, so that they can send it to Nizhyn because they have a direct way with Poland because of the EU. So because of that, I now have that contact, that process of allowing me to continue that project.
The world is so very small, and you just gotta make the most of every opportunity.
That's
Exactly.
incredible.
All about who you know too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
No, please.
It's also very interesting when you even touched on that on every news, like on every news channel and the television, that it was the American election that was going on. That was what was being shown. When I was living in Italy over the summer.
Quick flex.
Same thing. No, very different. But I was living there, and I was talking to someone that I met that was living in Italy and lived in Italy his whole life. And he was studying in Copenhagen global business, and he like did this program where he went like 1 year in Italy and Copenhagen and just like different places, right? And taking his master's. I was talking to him, and he's like, we so carefully watch the U.S. election because it genuinely affects our life here in Italy. It affects our life in Europe, and so I think seeing that and seeing those global effects kind of is what I talked about earlier, the ripple of it. And I know you want to piggyback off that real bad. I see you.
No.
But I think it's really awesome I don't know, maybe awesome, maybe unique that we're so interconnected in the way that we are, and that, our way of life is kind of also kind of shown as different ways wherever you're going, for sure.
Yeah. Is it awesome? It's up to the beholder of the power.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But the U.S. sphere of influence, I wanted to mention, I was in Norway this past summer, and I remember speaking to so many people on the train while the first debate was going to happen, and they were just speaking about, this matters so much to us, our economy, the natural resource that they buy off. I mean, and it's for every single country in the world. There's studies done in the past, like every 1% that the U.S. GDP goes up, the world's GDP goes up. So,
That's crazy.
I mean, the trend, the intersection is just insane, and we hope for the best for America, just like we hope for the best for the world.
I was in Spain this summer, actually, and it was the exact same. I was in an international relations class, and because of the American election, they canceled all of our class programming, and we just studied, like, the impact of American, all politics, economics, everything on the rest. My teacher worked for the European Union, so it was it was the coolest thing I've ever done, but we just kind of made a lot of those connections and had really awesome conversations about current events, and it was so productive. But anyways, off of this little sidebar, I guess, that we've been on, you actually called this question earlier, but looking ahead, what's next for you? You talked about your dream projects and kind of goals, but maybe more short term or more insights into your long term.
Yeah, what are you chasing right now?
Ooh, chasing. Okay. Interesting phrasing. Okay. But I mean, you guys know my long term, alrighty.
Yes.
So I won't bore you with that. But I think I have plans A through E thus far in my head.
Okay.
Plan A is apply to prestigious programs. I know specifically I want to apply to Rhodes Scholars, Marshall Scholars, and Schwarzman Scholars. Schwarzman's actually waitlisted me. Those guys over there, they
don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. They don't, well, I want them to pick me this time. So on the record,
Not exactly what they're doing.
They know exactly what they're doing. Plan B, you guys can keep that in. It's funny.
No, that's funny.
Plan B is potentially taking a gap year to study for the LSAT, and I want to apply to Harvard Law. I would love to go to law school, specifically because I want to understand how I can use law as a shield against the weaponization of it from other people. So I think understanding that is critical to my success in the future, and I think law school is inevitable for me, whether I get my master's first or go to law school. So that's plan B. Plan C is potentially going directly to the State Department, working there as a Foreign Service officer to catalyze my career in diplomacy. Plan D would be maybe apply to Goldman Sachs. You know,
Seems like we're on the same wavelength. Right?
Really? Okay.
Law school, Goldman Sachs, Rhodes Scholars. I mean, very, very cool stuff.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully I can pave the path for that for you. So because I know that we have an amazing alumni, Amy. She's a good friend of mine now, who is a Rhodes Scholar. She's been an amazing guiding star when it comes to that stuff. So I would love to echo that, because she told me I have to I made a promise to her that I'll do exactly for others that she did to me when it comes to guiding me. Amazing person. So. Amazing. So Goldman Sachs plan D, specifically because I was informed that risk management is something I'm good at, and potentially I could learn even more and apply that to the different projects I'm working. And then plan E, I think, is just calming down and then full force nonprofit. But I think simultaneous to all of those, my nonprofit would be if not primary, then secondary into everything.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I mean, I wish I had an A through E. I unfortunately cannot say that I do, but
I'm still figuring out A.
So do you know what you're going to tackle for? Is that in order, A through E?
I think so. I think a list of priorities, yes.
Okay.
With the caveat that the nonprofit is still always up there.
Okay, got you. Locked in. Okay, very, very cool. I love that.
Now, looking back into your time at the university, what is one thing that you wish every student knew, or something that they can do before they graduate?
You know, I wish I knew that you could just shadow classes that you are fascinated in, but you don't want to pay for example, or that you just can't afford. Right now, I am shadowing law school classes, randomly just showing up. I mean, obviously, I get approval from the professors, but showing up and specifically being like, can I sit in and listen? Great example, Dr. Kaufman, who has a fantastic career background. He went to Yale for a bachelor's, got Marshall Scholars for Oxford University, then went back to Yale for a law degree. And he specifically centralizes and focuses on genocide study, specifically with Rwanda. So I love that. He's teaching international law. I sit in, I listen to his courses. I listen to what they say. I contribute as much as I can as an undergrad student still, but I think I've learned so much from that. And I think students should take advantage of the classes that are even here that are just available to anyone, basically, to sit in, to listen. Because I think the purpose of getting a good grade in a class shouldn't... Okay, so for me, I think the reason why I was able to maintain a 4.0 thus far isn't because I was aiming for that grade. It was specifically because I was there to learn the material. And if you learn to love to learn, you won't ever have an issue of what grade will I have.
Wow.
You need to love your job, or else, and that won't be work. So that's wonderful.
For sure.
So to conclude, how can our listeners support Yuri or Off the Battlefield Foundation? Where can they find more info?
Ooh, I mean, we do have a website now, you know. I was able to agglomerate a group of computer science students that are helping us now. Again, utilizing that as a thing for trampoline for their careers, potentially. But we do have a website, Off the Battlefield, as well as offthebattlefieldfoundation.org. It's still kind of in production, but I'm assuming sooner rather than later we'll definitely have a lot more things. And I know that we have now a chapters page for the University of Florida's Ukraine Rebuilding Initiative.
That's awesome.
Directly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this episode. I feel like there have been so many things that you have said that I could see on, like, when I look up powerful, influential quotes to start an
100%.
essay on or something like that. I have felt like, especially the one where you said using law as a shield when others weaponize it. I think that is super cool. And I just really appreciate you coming on and speaking about all of this. It's not one of our usual episode topics, and that's what I love about it. It's being able to hear from your story and really get into these nuanced conversations as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Speak on,
Incredible.
Your voice is like a crowbar. You know, you pry everything open, you find the truth. And I mean, I've learned so much from this conversation. I'm sure we all really appreciate your time, so thank you for it.
Of course. I wanted to then conclude as well. I think a quote that I really much resonate is specifically, real victory is achieved not in the battles won, but in the war avoided altogether. And if the diplomats have failed, it is up to us to actually help heal and rebuild. So that's kind of the essence of Yuri, and I think you yourselves as journalists, as people who are trying to, as you say, act as that crowbar to get the truth out and making sure that students like myself who have done the work and would love to display that and kind of, again, push for that precedent to be vividly evident. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, so thank you guys so much for the opportunity for me to speak my truth.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And that's a wrap.
That was
We're good.
incredible.
Dude.